crowd cheer out to the 35. This time London. He held on. He's on the slip through and score. Bates talking. Jesse Bates interception. 15, 10, 5. Drive home safely.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Falcons Final Whistle podcast. I am Tori McElhaney, joined virtually by Terrin Waack. Terrin is currently still in Providence as her flight does not leave until tomorrow morning. So we are recording this after I flew back from Atlanta with the team. Terrin again leaves tomorrow. So we may be a little delulu as we talk about this game that we witnessed up at Gillette Stadium earlier on Sunday. The Falcons dropped to 3-5 on the year, losing their third consecutive game to the New England Patriots, the final score being a 1-point difference, 24-23 the Patriots' way. The Falcons weren't without chances to win this game, point blank, period, and that's kind of where I want us to start this podcast. As a reminder, this show is split into 4 quarters. When our 6-minute timer is up, the whistle blows, and we move on to the first topic. So, Terrin, are you ready to get this thing started?
I am ready.
Okay, here we go. So first quarter number 1, I want to talk about the team's missed opportunities because I feel as though that encapsulates what this game was. I think what I'm most frustrated by in the aftermath of this game is that it's what Raheem Morris said. If I'm being completely honest, when after the game, he was asked about the game and he said, we have to, quote, find a way to win that one. And my thing is like, you had a way, like you had multiple ways. You were 3 for 3 in the red zone. Drake London had a hat trick on 50-50 balls in the end zone. Mm-hmm. Your defense turned the ball over not once, but twice, and you notched 6 total sacks. Like all of that in and of itself, as we're sitting there watching this game from start to finish, it just felt like those were the big moments. If you're looking and you're talking to coaches and players, those are the things, touchdowns, sacks, and turnovers, that if those things go your way, if they swing your way, you're usually talking about a win. And that's actually a fact, because there is this stat that I ran across while I was doing kind of the rundown for this podcast that stated since the 1964 season, teams that were +2 in turnovers and +5 in sacks won 96.9% of the time. Those are dang good odds. And this team specifically, over the course of these 4 quarters, were not without chance after chance to really take this one. Terrin, I've been speaking for a long time, and I apologize for that, but you were in the locker room post-game. What did some of these players have to say about this? Because of course, I'm going off of like what Raheem Morris said in the press conference, but what did the players say?
No, you set the scene perfectly. It doesn't matter how many words it took because all what that you said is completely true. And in the locker room, it was a somber vibe. I'm pretty sure the word somber was used more than once. I mean, you talk to Parker Romo and you talk about missed opportunities, and his missed point after would have tied the game. And who knows where that game would have gone if it had been tied up 24-24. You don't know who would have won. Mm-hmm. There's missed opportunity right there. And he said nobody wanted this win more than I did in this locker room. He played for the Patriots in the preseason. This was
which I forgot about.
So did I, because I don't really keep track on preseason teams.
Right, yeah.
But you could tell it affected him. And yeah, you have to make that. It's
right.
Not someone made a 68-yard field goal today, the longest in NFL history I saw. This was a point after. You have to make that. As you said, point blank. You had Jake Matthews being like, this didn't feel good. Last week didn't feel good. But you can't say it was all bad, but we didn't win. It's like you're putting caveats on everything. Like it wasn't bad, but they still lost. Same thing with Drake London. He has 3 touchdowns and he goes, it's still a loss. And I don't care about any of the personal stats.
Right. And I think like that's ultimately kind of where we end up with this, is that like it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Like, yes, the odds are when you're looking at kind of historically, if you have these turnovers, if you have these sacks, if you have these touchdowns and these appearances in the red zone, like you're not only going to give yourself the best chance to win, but you're winning those games. And the fact of the matter is the Falcons didn't win, and it was because of these missed opportunities. My question to you, Terrin, because I know what my answer is, but I want to ask you first, like, which of the like missed opportunities of the game did you feel like was maybe the most egregious to the final score?
Uh, I don't want to put it on this one moment because there's so much that led up to it, but it has to be for me the point after
Yeah.
because you had the opportunity right there to tie it up and see what you can do. Like the first half was meh, that you come out in the second half and figure things out and finally get rolling and get to a point where you're caught up to the Patriots and you miss it. You don't get to see what the Falcons could have done with a tied ball game.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it changes things because you come out of that opportunity and you end up not doing anything offensively thereafter. And that's what's such a hard pill to swallow, too, is there were 4 minutes and I think 40 seconds left. Up. And as we are talking about it, there's our whistle. So we are moving on to the second quarter where we are going to talk about, I mean, we have to. Drake London. He had one of the best days that I think I've ever seen from him. And I've seen a lot of good Drake London days. I really I don't think you could talk about this game and not talk about Drake London. It's one of those things where I even after the game, I was like, Drake London alone deserved to win that game. And
Yes.
the fact that ultimately we're sitting here talking about how he had 9 catches on 14 targets, 118 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns. Yes, 3, like the hat trick. And honestly, some of the photos from those catches were some of the best that I think I've seen all season from our team photographer, Jay. He captured all 3 of those. He was actually in every end zone that Drake caught a touchdown pass in today, which was really actually funny. And honestly, I put those 3 photos on my Twitter, so you can check it out. Go give Jay some love. I tagged him. You can
Our
follow
MVP.
our MVP, Jay. So make sure and go check that out. It's on my page at Tori_McElhaney. But Terrin, what did you and kind of the other people? I know you touched on this a little bit, but what did everybody make of Drake London's performance today?
I already gave away how Drake felt. Not
Yeah.
happy. Doesn't matter what kind of statistics he put up. At the end of the day, Drake cares about wins, and they did not win. So, taking him aside, other people did recognize how great of a day he had. Raheem Morris said he had uncommon effort. You have Jake Matthews saying he's a stud. That guy does it the right way, prepares right, a great teammate. You saw the plays he made today. He's a great athlete. Got to keep getting him the ball. And then you even have Marcus Jones from the Patriots side, who's like, his catch radius is remarkable. He's
Yeah.
a great player and he made a lot of plays today. So you just have literally everybody recognizing the fact that Drake London had himself a day and it wasn't enough.
Yeah. Which is, again, another frustrating point of all of this. And what I found to be really interesting too, within these 3 touchdown catches specifically for Drake, is that it wasn't like these were elaborate routes that he's running. It's not like this was these crazy things that he's being asked to do. It literally is a 50-50 ball that he's in a one-on-one situation against a DB. And it changed periodically who he was up against. But I think for Drake, like you talk about what even some of the Patriots were talking about with his catch radius. I would say like the body control, the ball tracking, like he showcased kind of all of that in those 3 moments. And I know that you and I, like, we get to see what Drake does. It's kind of like when we talk about Bijan, like we get to see it all the time. And sometimes it even surprises us a little bit of like how remarkable it truly is. And I think like Drake's performance today just got me thinking too about something that I said at the tail end of last year and kind of like it being a theme of the team was that there were individual pieces of the offense and the defense that were having career years and were doing a lot of really, really good things. And yet the Falcons didn't make it to the playoffs. And yet the Falcons weren't atop the NFC South. Like, and yet. And that's why I think like this performance from Drake, it feels very reminiscent to everything that I feel like I said that the Falcons didn't need to be going into this season.
I mean, it's the epitome of the cliche. There's no I in team. And we talk about all the pieces to the puzzle. You're not making the puzzle. You have all the pieces, but we're not getting the full picture still. And it's Drake London, it's Bijan Robinson, it's Jesse Bates, it's Kaden Ellis. They're all having these career games, career seasons, big moments. And there's still big losses.
Yeah.
That it does stink that Drake's day is kind of clouded over, even in his own mind. And you want that out of a player. You want your players on the team to be like, I don't care about what I did. We ultimately did not win, and that's all that matters to me. That is exactly what you want out of a Drake London. And yet here we are, like, it's still a loss.
Yeah.
Like, we can talk about Drake all we want, but the fact of the matter is they still lost.
Yeah. Honestly, that's a good note to end on as we hear our next whistle, which sends us to halftime. And we go to halftime wanting to thank our sponsor, Microsoft Copilot, which is the system that helped us curate this halftime break stat for you guys. The stat being, in the last 10 seasons, teams were 64-0 when going to this stat is so crazy to me. In the last 10 seasons, teams were 64-0 when having 2 turnovers or more and 5 or more sacks. That is until today. 64-0 over the last decade. If a team had more than 2 or more turnovers or 5 or more sacks, they won the game. It goes back to that very first point that we had all the way back in quarter one. And I don't even like this stat to me is just the epitome of what this game was and the frustration level that I think I even have about it.
I feel like we say the record and we give people 5 seconds to process it. 64-0 is now 64-1.
Yeah. So that's our halftime break brought to you by Microsoft Copilot. And that brings us to the third quarter and our third topic, which wasn't it so nice to get Jalon Walker back? Like, I know that there are multiple pieces that the Falcons got back today, but it really did feel like Jalon Walker in his presence was felt just to a very significant magnitude for this defense. Terrin, what were his final stats? Remind us all.
Jalon Walker had 5 total tackles, 4 of which were solo, 2 sacks for a loss of 26 yards, and a pass breakup and a forced fumble. That's pretty good.
Yeah, not too shabby. I thought and I'll say this too, like a lot of his big time plays came in these really clutch, gotta have it moments. So I thought the moment that absolutely solidified that this defense as a unit was going to keep this game at least interesting was the strip sack by Jalon and then the return to the New England 6-yard line by James Pierce Jr. It led to a touchdown right before halftime that kept it a 1-score game instead of it maybe stretching to an out-of-hand territory if New England would have marched down the field and even put up 3 more points before going into halftime, knowing that they got the ball coming out of halftime. I think that right there is what this defense has kind of been missing since they lost Divine Diablo, and it's kind of these havoc plays. And so it was nice to see not just Jalon Walker, but James Pierce Jr. come together for this moment that really felt like it flipped the game on its head a little bit and kind of gave the Falcons life to take this game to ultimately what should have been a tie game at the tail end of the fourth quarter. What Terrin, stood out to you about this defensive performance, whether it be Jalon or James Pierce Jr. or whoever? Like, what stood out?
First of all, you see your two first-round draft picks pulling this off. One forces the fumble, the other one scoops it and returns it. Like, that is return on investment happening live in action. Like, your future is right there. And it's just fun to see because I think it has been a minute since we talked about the draft class because you did have injuries with Jalon Walker, Billy Bowman Jr., who didn't play today. So yeah, it kind of also gets lost in the sauce with the losses and having to talk about the offense and even special teams. So give credit where credit is due that your two first-round draft picks basically set the scene for you to have an opportunity in this game. Because if the Falcons hadn't scored before halftime and it's a 2-possession, 3-possession possibly game, you feel a lot different when the third quarter rolls around. But that wasn't the case. I mean, that's why it was the key moment or whatever I call it in the game breakdown. Like, it felt different. Like, okay, we still have a game. And then in the second quarter, the defense really steps up and only allows the Patriots to add 3 points, whereas everything else came in the first 2 quarters. So you see that swing work so much in the Falcons' favor. That's why it's also just such a shame it didn't work.
Yeah.
Like, it was, I hate to bring it back to the dull moment, but we are still talking about a loss. It was great to have Jalon Walker back. The strip sack and the recovery by James Pierce Jr. being tagged in there too. Great moment. Neither of them really cared in the locker room either. Jalon Walker was talking about how they need to fix the little details because those add up, and you saw that in New England. So it's just a shame that like these big moments aren't being celebrated because these players care so much about winning, which is great. Love that they care. Shame that we can't just celebrate and leave it at that.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a good point too, because I mean, in the same breath of me saying that, like, I feel like Drake London deserved to win this game, there's a part of me that feels like the second half defense, particularly, and kind of that end of half moment, like, they deserved to win this game. And I'm not saying that the offense didn't. Like, everybody's you're on the same team, but it's just like, it's so unfortunate to sit here and say all of these entities deserved a chance to beat the Patriots and that it didn't come to fruition. One thing, Terrin, before we hit on once we get to the final quarter, I did want to ask, how did the Falcons evolve their rotation with J.D. Bertrand and Ronnie Harrison? Because I feel like we saw a lot more Ronnie Harrison than we did last year as the Falcons continue to try to evolve not having Divine Diablo in this roster.
Oh, for sure. I mean, against the Dolphins, J.D. Bertrand was out there for all but one defensive snap. That was definitely not the case against the Patriots. Snap counts haven't been released yet as of Sunday night. I think they come out Monday morning at some point. But so I can't speak to exactly how often J.D. Bertrand was on the field. But there were moments where I think you turned to me and was like, did J.D. Bertrand start? Because he hasn't been out there. Like, there was definitely more rotation. It felt, even if it was still just a committee of 2, it felt more by committee than it did against the Dolphins.
Yeah, I agree. And there is our whistle bringing us to the fourth and final quarter as we look ahead, because I think that's what we need to. Like, I don't really have anything else to really say about this game. I feel like we've said everything that there is to say, but I wrote in my column that went up after the game that, you know, there is this constant almost reaction in losses that I think a lot of people fall back to, where it's like, we still have a lot of football ahead of us. But as the weeks go on, the Falcons' losses kind of start to pile up. They've lost 3 of their last 4 games, and it's going to be difficult to go to Germany later this week and face the Indianapolis Colts that they're coming off of a loss. I don't know what type of Indianapolis Colts team you're going to get out in Germany. You could get one that's out for blood because of this loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it's making, I say all this because I feel like it's making a postseason berth seem more and more difficult to even conceptualize if you're the Falcons. You're getting to the middle point of the season. So, Terrin, I know the Bucs were on a bye this week, but I wanted you to kind of take a look around the NFC South and tell our listeners kind of what happened on Sunday with everybody else.
Right. The Buccaneers are on a bye, but they're still atop the NFC South standings with a 6-2 record. The Panthers are in second. They beat the Green Bay Packers today, Sunday, 16-13. So their record now stands at 5-4. Solid, excuse me, in second. Falcons are 3-5. We all know what happened there. And then the Saints are 1-8. They lost 34-10 to the Rams. But the key here, what we care about, is the Panthers and Falcons battle. The Panthers are inching away from the Falcons because as the Falcons are losing, the Panthers are winning. And so, like, the Panthers are closer to the Buccaneers than the Falcons are to the Panthers. Like 6-2, 5-4, 3-5. Like, the Bucs and Panthers are above 500, whereas the Falcons and Saints are not.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's getting tougher. The path to the playoffs is much more difficult as the other teams above you continue to win.
Yeah. It's that simple. And I will add, the only silver lining that there is, and I guess, like, it's kind of like an I guess.
Yeah.
It depends on what you do with this good news, quote unquote, is that the Falcons, they still have a majority of their NFC South matchups coming after they get back from Germany and face the Indianapolis Colts. So while they keep saying that there is a lot of football left, like, at the exact same time, like, weeks are going by, you can only say there's a lot of football left to play until there's not. And right now, the Falcons are sitting at a point where it's like it can tip the scales because you are at a point where once you get back from Germany, things ramp up pretty quickly in the span of like a few weeks because you have the Carolina Panthers coming to town, you face the Saints, and then I believe it's like December 10th, like the second week of December, you play Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home or at Tampa Bay on a Thursday night. So none of this is
close.
getting
December 11th.
I was close. I knew it was that second week of December. So close. But I mean, it goes to show you that, like, yes, the Falcons still have like some things to like look at in terms of the NFC South standings. But like, again, to your point, if the Carolina Panthers keep winning, if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers keep winning and the Falcons don't start getting in the win column, like, I don't really know what else there is to say.
It's difficult because the Colts are doing well regardless of what happened on Sunday. The Panthers, to be completely honest, I don't know what's going on there, but they're winning. Like, they've won a few things. You have that 30-0 blemish on the Falcons record, and then the Carolina Panthers come to Atlanta after the big Germany game. Say the Falcons beat the Colts. You're stunting that losing skid at 3 games, my bad. 3 games. That could help coming back to Atlanta, but then you have to stack wins. And that's what we've been talking about since the season began. The Falcons need to stack wins. Like, you have 2 in a row between the Commanders and the Bills, but there's a bye week in between, so I don't know if I necessarily count those as 2 in a row. It's complicated. Like, you had a break to figure things out. That you need to stack wins if you want to make the playoffs. It's kind of as simple as that. But I think that Carolina game in Atlanta is massive now, considering how it went earlier in the season, calling it an anomaly. But now the Panthers are also kind of inching away from you in the standings. So it's difficult. And then you go to New Orleans. And fluky things happen there.
They do.
And
we all know that.
Needs to be on the Falcons side.
Yeah. Ultimately,
it's a tough. I'm looking at it like, oof.
I know. Honestly, you make such a good point too about stacking wins. Like, but at the end of the day, like, the Falcons got to get in the win column, just point blank, period. Like, and get in the win column soon.
I know it.
Especially if the Bucs and the Panthers are going to continue to surge, and that'll do it. That's our final whistle. And that'll do it for this Final Whistle episode. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will see you this Friday on the Friday Five as we get you geared up for the very first regular season game in Berlin, Germany, as the Falcons face the Indianapolis Colts, a team that actually, as we stated before, just lost their second game against the Pittsburgh Steelers this Sunday. Maybe it'll be interesting out in Germany. I know Terrin and I are looking forward to it, but we will be your boots on the ground all week in Flowery Branch before hopping on a very long flight across the pond. We will talk to you all later this week. See ya.